affect the animation from the perspective viewport. You can see how things are looking so bright. Now, there's additional animation controls I'm going to manipulate now to add that additional improved motion to our object, and those are none other than the IK chains of our object. And the way we're going to animate them is just the same as we did with the other objects. Let's start by frame 0. Of course, as you can see, make sure of course auto key is turned on, and then we're going to create a key for it there. Now, since it's going hand in hand with the motion of the foot here, as you can see clearly, the next step is frame 21. So, because if we move here, you'll notice that's frame 21. That's when things need to happen. So we're going to select the foot, the IK chain of the foot there, move on to frame 21. Now, since this is an IK chain, it means we can manipulate the swivel around which this leg here rotates while it's in the air. So we're going to go, because the IK chain, we're going to click on the motion panel there. Okay, this is where IK stores all its secret information that we are now going to access. Here's what we do. We're going to scroll down until you see this guy here called IK Solver Plane. And this guy here, as you can see, it has an option there called swivel angle, of course. And of course that means, can you see what swivel angle does? Of course, it allows us to manipulate just which angle is the object going to swivel around at. Okay? Now, we need to be smart and do the following. Because the leg is moving in the air, we want it to be dragged a bit before it sets its feet, of course, on the ground. So we are first going to move to frame 46. Remember, that's where the foot comes to the ground, and then we are going to change the swivel angle there to a value of none other than 0, as you can see, so that of course it gives us a keyframe there. Very important. So either create a key there or simply play around with this like this and then turn it back to 0. Okay, very important. And then of course back to frame 21 where things need to happen, and let's try to swivel it at around, as you can see, we're swiveling it backwards. So swivel it around 20 units like that, so that, as you can see, of course, it tends to look as if the leg is being moved backwards to create a bit of a lag before the leg actually lands. And then, just as with the previous one, we're going to now move to frame, of course, 68. Right there. Actually, let's first go to frame 90 towards the end, and let's bring this guy here back to 0. As you can see, that's 0. And then of course frame 68, and then of course remember at this point here the leg wants to move back, so we want it to be dragged a bit in a forward position. So we're going to swivel it forward at minus 20 degrees. Sorry, minus 20. Let's see if this has had any impact whatsoever on the leg. You see that now? Can you tell the difference? Now the leg looks like it wants to plant itself, you know. This is really the way to do it. You see that? It doesn't just pick itself up. It takes its time, you know, to settle on the floor. Okay. And of course, remember, whatever we did here, we need to replicate on the other ones. So we're going to select the IK chain on that leg, for instance. Of course, at the frame 0, we're going to manipulate this. Sorry. Let me undo that. Yeah, let's go to frame 0. We're going to manipulate it so that it's sort of 0 units at that frame. And then of course at frame, let's see, 21. Frame 21, it should be swiveled up to 20 degrees. Yeah, you can see of course what swiveling does to an object. And then of course we move on to frame 46. At this point it must be swiveled back to 0. Let's go to frame 68. Now that the leg is moving forward, it needs to be dragged back, so we're going to swivel it at minus 20, of course. and at the end at frame 90 must be swiveled at 0 units. Now let's see the difference now. Can you tell now? You can even see the mechanical work that the legs actually try to do to move in any direction. You see that? Okay. And then of course we're going to move on to the middle legs with the AK chains. Now let's see. In the beginning, not much swiveling needs to happen because it's simply moving backwards. And so, just like with the leg, we're going to move to where things are actually happening at frame 46. We're going to try and move the units there and then turn it back onto 0. Let's see. Yeah, also there it's at 0. Okay. And then let's go to frame, of course, 68. And now that the leg is coming forward, of course, we need to move it or to swivel it forward, maybe at frame, let's see, maybe minus 25 degrees for the swivel angle, and then move on forward again at frame 0, at frame 90 that is, and then change the swivel angle back to 0. Let's just see what this has done. Yeah, you see now, it swivels quite beautifully, I must say. Okay, quite beautiful, of course. So let's just remember the units. That was 0 and then it became minus 25. Okay, do the same on the other chain, of course. Now for this baby we're going to move to frame 21. And at this point, remember the position of the leg, so that means it must be moved at minus, let's see, 25 degrees because it's moving forward. And then we move on to frame 46, of course, and change it back to 0. Now it too, that leg, you can see of course how beautifully it's swiveling. And then now of course those at the back. We're going to move on to frame 46. And simply drag this value here and turn it back onto 0. And then of course let's go to frame 68, and it needs to be swiveled up at 20 degrees. And of course when it comes to the end it must be swiveled back to 0, like that. Let's just confirm whether things are going well at this point here. Yep, you can see of course how nicely it's swiveling. Okay, except for this one here, the swiveling is a bit too much. You can see it sort of cuts into the other structure at frame 21. So we're going to reduce the swivel angle, to something like minus 18. That means of course that chain also, the one there at this point here, mustn't be minus 25, but instead it must be minus 18, like that. Okay, so that they won't be cutting. See that? And now they're no more intersecting, of course. Okay. So then of course we're only left with this one here, the chain to manipulate. Go to frame 0, or actually frame 21. Swivel angle, we'll turn it to, let's see, minus 20. Okay, in the beginning it must be, let's see, 0. Okay, so it's going to swivel like you can see. And then of course we go to frame 46, where of course it must be set to 0, like that. And of course at frame 90 must be also 0. Or let's play around with it like that to make it 0. Now as you can see, of course, even the back legs are having a nice animation. And of course, as I'm sure you can tell for yourselves, the body's our Mokonzi, the robot, is indeed doing quite fantastic animations. Okay, now something tells me that the body needs to be moved further to the sides, because when we play our animation, I'm going to change my speed here to 2 times so that we can see it in a faster speed. You can see it's coming to rest a bit too quickly, so we're going to go to the beginning of the animation, back to the front viewport, and turn on show grid, because the grid helps us as a guide to see how many units we're moving by. We're going to move to the next keyframe. I think, let's say here, what if we want our body to go to the side like that? Sorry, I'm going to press Ctrl Z, turn on the angle snap toggle so that we can get accurate angle measurements. So that's -5 degrees on that side, and further a bit. And then of course, let's see here, when it gets here at from 71, we turn it like that, and of course we rotate it we'll rotate it at the positive value on the other side. Ooh, now this is too cumbersome. Let's see, perhaps rotating it was a bad idea after all. I'm going to turn off the rotation, also the turn off the rotation, so sorry, by simply rotating it back to 0 units like that. Let's see if we have good. Okay, yeah, that's much better. Now we have much more enhanced side motion. Now you can see, of course, see that it's much more aggressive now. See that? Okay, now our Mokonzi is much more aggressive in its walk. And remember, of course, that we can always go to frame such as 26 and try to maybe just raise it just up a little. So that's its keyframe there. Move on to frame 71, and of course paste the keyframe there. Okay, this of course if you wanted to rise up a bit more. Okay, and of course if I turn it back to 1 speed, you can tell the difference. Remember, our aim is never to overdo things. So if you feel like it's going a bit too high, you simply lower it, of course. I'm going to simply undo my movement keyframes, so that now we can get back to the more subtle. Okay, the more subtle animation that we had earlier. And now, when we play back our animation, you will sense somehow that there's some things that jerk somewhere. And this comes a part of refining our animation. To do that, here's what we need to do. We need to open up the curve editor. So there's the curve editor option, or you can go to graph editors, new track view, or track view curve editor. This should have all the objects in our scene. By clicking on any of them. But you can see clearly, I don't know why mine is not showing the right things. Here's what we do. We're going to select from the selection sort, select all the animation controls, and then we go to graph editors, new track view. Okay, what we did was, again, graph editors, new track view. This will now show you all the objects in the select it again from the animation controls. Yeah, now this keeps all our objects inside. Now there could be some jerkiness with the way our animation loops because of the way the graphs of each of our objects appears. Let's start with the main one, for instance. You will notice, let's say we have this curve here. You notice along here that the curve is not bending quite right. So here's how to fix it. If we don't fix it, you'll notice that if we play back the animation, it will tend to do something weird towards the end of the animation. That's because of unnecessary keyframes and so forth. For instance, this one in the middle here, we can simply hit delete on the keyboard. Well, let's see, can we right click and delete? No. Okay, so we select the key, simply hit delete on the keyboard to make it smoother, and then we need to determine whether it will actually loop properly. So we click on this button here that says parameter curve out of range types, and then let's change the curve type to a loop. Click OK. You notice that when our animation loops, there will be some discrepancies because of this weird shape here. So that's causing parts of the problem as well. So we need to fix that by simply selecting the handle and dragging it. And of course, at the beginning here too, we're going to adjust the parameters, as you can see, so that way when you see the overall curve, you can see now it's a much more smoother curve than when it started. Okay, and also with the legs, let's start with that one there. Let's say with this one here, you'll notice that the curve comes down here, but in here there's an extra keyframe, and I can assure you it's not needed. So select that, and then we're going to delete. And then we need, of course, to do that for all the legs, deleting unnecessary keyframes such as that one. Delete. All this we're doing to give us a smoother animation, and I can assure you, you will be able to tell the difference when we are done. You can see again, in this case here, clearly this key is not required, so select it and hit delete. It's these little details such as these that really cause a problem, and fortunately we know what to do. We delete them, of course. And then of course there's one other one there. That key there, you see, it's unnecessary along a curve. Delete. And mind you, the curve is looping, so we don't need unnecessary keyframes. Now when you play back our animation, can you see what a much smoother animation we're getting indeed, eh? See that? Okay, indeed this is the stuff that we're always talking about. Now guys, there's something to watch out for. If you look up close directly to the front, please pay attention to these bones here of the legs. You'll notice they tend to go through the eyes of our character. You see that? You see what's happening? Okay, so that we just cannot allow. So to fix that problem, it's simple. We simply select the dummy root. Make sure you turn off auto key, as you can see. Why are we turning off auto key? Well, so that whatever movement that we apply now will be applied throughout the scene. Okay, so we come to the front viewport then, and we are simply going to raise the body of the dummy root like that, so that it can be slightly above the floor. Hopefully in this way we have eliminated that fact. You can see the still parts of it going through there. Okay, let's just analyze things a bit. You see the bones are still going through, so we move the body even higher still. Let's see whether we've made a difference now. Now you'll notice, of course, that they're no more going through. When I play mine from up close here, you'll notice now there's much more safer distance between the lens of the eyes and the bones that actually make up the leg. So yeah, that's just something to look out for. Okay, and my goodness, do I have to say, is this looking so good? So remember, to fix the problem with the leg going through the eye, we simply raise the level of the dummy root. Not too much, just enough, okay? So that in that way, of course, the body can have its nice way through the scene. Now, we may have solved one problem, but we've created another. I'm going to show you what we did. Click on the selection set, and then we're going to select all the bone objects. Okay, or simply enter the bone. 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 You'll notice now 3 makes select them all. Click select, and we're going to right click and say hide selection. Now I bet you can see the problem that the legs, now some of them are floating in the air as if they were loose. You see that? Now despite all we did, the legs must still be part of the body. So we're going to turn on edge faces for now. Select the leg, the front ones here, And then we're going to the modify panel, select the vertices, and then we're going to select these back vertices here, the ones at the back, and then we need to move them backwards. So select the moving tool, and then we're going to select, let's say in the beginning of the animation here, or somewhere where they appear to be really loose, like here. We're going to select the moving tool, but we want to move them according to a particular axis so that we move them properly, so or else we're going to end up with a rubbish shape. So we're going to change the move mode to parent. Now you notice, of course, how 3D Max now changes the axis. And then we're going to right click on the moving tool, and in here we want a certain value that we can paste onto the other leg as well. Okay, so let's see, we're going to enter there for the Z coordinate. Let's enter the 17. You can see how 17 pushes the leg inwards back. I'm going to undo that. Let's see, maybe 20. Yeah, that more or less, of course, puts it right inside where it belongs in the body. Of course, we need to do the same with this leg also. Select the vertices mode, and of course pick up only those vertices at the edge there. Okay, remember it's still also on the parent axis, and remember we are simply going to enter also what, 20, of course, and press enter. That again, of course, will send it right back into the body. Let's see whether we've done our job, because the legs should not float, they should still be part of the body. Yeah, I think we've achieved our goal. Yeah, you see that? Now the legs, of course, are no longer floating. Great stuff. And of course now you know we just need to turn off the edge faces and right click and then select unhide all. Yeah, so that it should now bring back the legs, the bones of the legs. Yeah. And looking at our animation, I think some kind of fine tuning is required, especially with our front legs, because the way they come together, the front here, is not so desirable. You see here, they already look folded before they actually reach the floor. Okay, let's begin by modifying our scene. We're going to turn on auto key. Let's start from the beginning. You can see here, for instance, this one, the swivel angle here is the one we are going to adjust. You can see how it starts here. Now around this time here, that's when it should fold somehow. Okay, remember we're working on the key mode toggle, so at frame 21, okay, its keyframe is 20 there. Frame 46, you can see the problem that it has already spread out like that. So here we're going to change the swivel amount here to 20, like that. That way, of course, it bends, as you can see, as it's settled there. So just make sure you enter 20 there. And now before it goes back, you can see, of course, you can see before it goes back, it's going to fold again nicely, and that should be minus 20, of course, and of course this should be 0 as in the beginning. Okay, let's play this back. Yeah, you see now, it has a nice, you see that nice twisty motion before retreating backwards. See that? Beautiful. Okay, now let's work, of course, on that chain. Again, observe the motion here. You see how it moves? You see that? Yeah, you see it's already bent when it's coming forward here around this animation. You see that? So that's what we need to fix. Okay, at frame 0, of course, it should have a swivel angle of 0. Moving on to frame 21. Of course, the swivel angle is 20 at frame 21. And then at frame 46, can you just confirm again? It starts at 0. At frame 21. Yeah, at frame 21, it should read 20 units for the swivel angle. And frame 46, this is, of course, before the leg twists around before coming forward. So in here, we're going to enter a swivel angle of minus 20, like that. And of course, you can see what minus 20 does. It rotates it, of course, backwards, as you can see. So we're going to enter there minus 20. Okay, and then the next frame should still be minus 20, like that. Okay, and of course the next frame must be 0. Now you see that? Can you see now? We can see how beautifully the leg is moving through the scene there, much more properly. You see that? Nice twisty animation going on, okay?
Thank you for watching yet another amazing episode in the amazing Mokonzi the Robot training series. My name is Henrythejedi, and remember to support us by purchasing our training DVDs. Get yourselves a copy of one or two or all of them, because together they will put you in such a strong, solid position to take your production to another amazing level of creativity. My name is Henry Mbata, also known as the Jedi, and I'm out of here.